Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Diamonds, the Future is Female. Today we bring you a panel discussion on the changing role of women in the diamond mining industry, how that affects Africa and also the rest of the world. Thanks to the Natural Diamond Council for hosting. My name is Melanie Grant, and I'm the luxury editor of 1843 magazine at The Economist, and I'll be your moderator. And I'd like you to allow me to introduce you to the panel. So if we start at the top left, my top left, which is Naseem, please introduce yourself, Naseem, and let us know who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'm Naseem Lahri, and I'm the Managing Director at Lucara Botswana. Thank you.
Great. Satta?
Hello, my name is Satta Matturi, and I'm the owner and creative lead of Satta Matturi Fine Jewelry, and I also work as an independent rough diamond valuator.
Wonderful. And Pat? Oh, someone has to unmute.
Yeah, I think she's on mute, right.
They've unmuted me. Hi, everybody. I'm Pat Dambe. I'm Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Global Sightholder Sales at Dambe.
Great. And Noëlla.
Hi, I'm Noëlla Coursaris Musunka. I'm the founder of a grassroots organization called Malaika. I'm excited to be here today.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. So I'm going to dive in because I want to, to have as much time as possible with your thoughts. So if we look at the historical element of mining, I suppose, in history, a pivotal moment for women in mining came in the early 2000s when the South African Mining Charter introduced a 10% quota that challenged the industry in terms of diversity. And then later on, that charter was updated to include 25% Black women at board level and 44% at other senior levels. And this has been one of a host of initiatives in Africa aimed at seeing more women and people of colour in key roles. The world, as we know, is changing, and power is evolving in recent times, at least. And so we think it's good for business that we have more diversity, but there are challenges that remain. And we're going to talk about those challenges today. So if I can start with Noëlla, who has a fantastic, fascinating life story. And so Noëlla, let me start with you. So you were born in the Democratic Republic of Congo and were sent to live with relatives in Europe when you were 5, when your father died and your mother couldn't afford to care for you. You went on to earn a business management degree and later formed a non-profit organization which helps girls. What has that taught you about the power of education, especially for girls?
Thank you for the question. To me, education is opportunity, but a staggering over 50 million of girls in sub-Saharan Africa are out of school today. Education has the ability to enact lasting, widespread empowerment. Not only is quality education essential for survival, it's also one of the greatest tools available that allow a person to have the ability to become a catalyst for change. We need to give young people across the globe the space to dream, to imagine their futures as doctor, engineer, artist, whatever they want to be. We need to give adults a place to reimagine and reinvent their lives too. Education is the tool for me that will get them all there. Through Malaika, over the last 13 years, I've observed firsthand how an entire village can be transformed through the education of girls, women, and community. An educated woman is more likely to give back to a community, to inspire others to attend school, and to cultivate a sense of curiosity, ambition, and independence among older peers and the next generation. And the community-driven model that has been at the core of Malaika's success, through a comprehensive approach, an entire village has gone through a tremendous transformation by investing in the ripple effect created by better access to education and health. Malaika is still transforming life, creating opportunity for children and adults at its reach. It's an ecosystem that we created made up of 4 pillars. It's a school that has 346 students, where Esther wants to become a doctor, where Mwamini wants to become an engineer, where Anna wants to become she wants to become too a doctor or a journalist, and Malaika has the school, the community center that impact more than 5,000 people a year, and we built 20 wells that provide water and fresh and reduce all the illness with what's happening now with the COVID-19. And we have the agriculture. So the school, the community center, the agriculture and the wells, the program that we set up in a village where there's no water, no electricity, can be duplicated in any context and any communities all over the world. Crucially, the local made we created for Malaika, particularly in terms of approach and curriculum, is very important because, you know, it's not about only creating a school, it's about creating very high quality education. It's about investing in the teachers, it's about strengthening non-stop the curriculum and making them adaptable with the 21st century. Right now, with the crisis that we're going through the COVID-19, our students are able, with our 3D printer, to have done more than 900 mask shields, and we've been distributing them at various hospitals. So we really teach our girls to think out of the box, and in situations like we are now, how they can serve the country and the continent.
So we can agree, I think, that gender inclusivity, it gives us access to opportunity that you just wouldn't have if you weren't educated. In your view, how can the diamond industry continue to contribute to gender equality, and why is that actually important? I mean, what can the industry itself do?
It's very important, and there's still a long way to go. I come from the Congo, a country that is so rich in minerals, but a country where you find cobalt, gold, coltan, diamond, but there are so many other countries across Africa equally rich in such resources. Mining, therefore, lies at the heart of the economy of many of these countries. But they have to benefit the countries and the population. They have to serve the underprivileged. We need to have a middle class in Africa. And responsible and ethical mining can directly empower the lives of women and their communities. It provides not just employment opportunities, but also much needed access to healthcare, infrastructure, education. This is crucial, particularly in many African countries, where inadequate schooling is a problem that disproportionately affects girls. By answering, I think, equal opportunities and creating an ecosystem that allows the girls to reach their full potential had a lasting effect on the entire communities, countries, and of course the continent. Providing the education is adequate training for the local workforce. We are putting ourselves on the path to establishing the sustainable industry that to contribute to the health and happiness of everyone. And we need to look at all the supply chains of the workforce.
Great, well, thank you, Noëlla. I'm going to move on to Satta. And so you're a jewelry designer as a lot, among other things. And there are very few jewelry designers who are Black and who are women at a high level. Although a large percentage of the minerals and the precious stones are from Africa. How do you think women can break these barriers to share their creative voice?
Thank you, Melanie. And I think let me sort of address the first statement that you make. It's a correct statement. I think there is a lack of Black female jewelry designers out there, and I think there's only a handful of us in particular within the fine jewelry space, and I think you know well who we are. But I think let me probably talk a little bit about my background and how I actually came into this industry. So I kind of, started off left field. I came through the non-traditional route. I have no formal jewelry making training. It was purely down to a passion for diamonds and creativity that I developed. And I identified a gap for designs that actually took inspiration from the African continent. And there was nothing representative of that. And I think that led me to start my fine jewelry brand. And given my background, working in the diamond mining business for 16, 17 years, so moving from that midstream and coming into, moving down that value chain to operate in a space that involved so many people, so many networks, and so many layers that you had to understand and penetrate in order to get your name and your brand out there. Was it daunting? Yes. Was it challenging? Absolutely so. And I still think today it's very, very challenging for anyone who's starting out.
Is the biggest challenge financial or networks or support? Where is the biggest challenge? Where was it for you?
Right. So for me, I mean, if I can touch on a few sort of barriers to entry, I think we just need to look at the very nature of the business itself, Melanie, is capital intensive. And that's it. It is what it is. You're operating you're operating an entity that has, you know, long inventory cycles. I'm not going to even go into sort of the retail side where there's memo and APRO and consignment. When you look at the raw materials, I mean, it's expensive and they're liable to huge fluctuations. I mean, if I take an example now, I'm actually working on my new collection, and we've got to a point where we've done the prototypes, we're going through all the costings. And then I took a look at the gold price. I almost fell off my chair. Things like accessing networks within a trade. I think as a jewelry designer, you need to work incredibly hard to make those connections at every level of the supply chain, from sourcing to production, route to market, PR, and you've got to build that trust and retain them. However, I think the most important thing is role models and mentorship, which I feel is very crucial and very critical to success. And we need to see more of those in the industry. And if it's an industry that wants to sort of bring in and retain the talent and the creativity. And I should say there's definitely a lack of black female role models out there. And this was a discussion we had a couple of days ago when the Goldsmiths Company UK hosted a webinar talking about diversity. And there were lots of students who phoned in to the chat. And I think the general consensus was, you know, there was a lack of role models. And it was all down to creating those visible and accessible mentorship programs, you know. And as an industry, I think that we need to sort of collectively get together, identify those success stories and celebrate them. And hopefully for me, I'm hoping that this will be pulled further down back to source in Africa, where there's, to my mind, great emerging talent that are pushing the boundaries in design, art, and culture. And you can see the shift in Africa. And it's something which I call the African creative renaissance. And that's been fueled by, you know, much wider access to technology and people being much more connected to the rest of the world.
Great. Thank you, Satta. I'm going to move on to Pat. Hello, Pat.
Hi.
So some shoppers, sometimes younger millennial shoppers, still associate diamonds, natural diamonds, with conflict in Africa. And I understand that De Beers, where you have worked for a long time, have a blockchain technology which can track every stone's movements from mine to market. Can you give us a really basic kind of view of what that is?
Sure. I think I want to start with the comment that you've just made, that I think a lot of millennials assume that a lot of diamonds are associated with conflict or environmental issues. And first of all, is to say that is not the case. In a lot of our producing countries where we come from, diamonds are making significant change and development in the communities in which they're coming from. So if I can speak specifically about Botswana a little bit, just to put it into context, and then talk about the blockchain platform that we have. You know, it's made a significant contribution to the lives of every single Botswana. You know, as a result of the partnership between the Botswana government and De Beers, every single Botswana has the benefit of free education, from nursery school, kindergarten, right up into university, and a passport for the best medical care that you can get anywhere in the world. So that's what diamonds have done for Botswana in terms of coming from, in the 60s, where we were the third poorest country on the continent, to where we are today. And there's a lot to be said within that space. but specifically with regard to the blockchain platform that we have. The easiest way to describe it is that it's all about technology, and it's about the what and the how and the whom. And the technology is really about taking a digital platform with artificial intelligence, high grade in terms of security and privacy, and creating a platform that will allow from a trace from mine to finger. Now, the digital asset itself is created at a producer level. It's registered of origin, and then the authenticity of the diamond is really important as well. The diamond digital asset, I would say, is then transferred to the next participant in the value chain, and it continues to go from every aspect of our value chain, to the manufacturer, to the retailer, and then finally to the consumer. Does that make sense? Those are so you can actually trace it from production to the consumer itself through this technical platform. Now, it's really interesting because now that means a consumer can ask the discerning questions, right, with our diamonds as to where they're coming from and the origin and responsible sourcing, et cetera, which is really, really important to consumers as well as to the retailers when they talk about the product that they have. So with many thousands of these diamonds, we register several, and it's been successfully proven the ability to trace the diamonds at an industry scale across the whole value chain. So authenticity is really, really important, best practice, and of course, provenance. And I think the way to describe provenance is really, where is it coming from? Who is it affecting? Who is it impacting? And is it real? I think that's really important.
And so these changes in technology and also sustainability, which is a big topic these days when it comes to mining, how have they affected women and women's progress in the industry, would you say?
I think as we sit here, listen to Satta's story, and Noëlla's story, and I know when we get to Naseem, we're all going to smile. And that is what diamonds have done, I believe. In my world personally, I have seen, and some of us are young girls, started in the industry in 1984, 1985, and we've come a long way. Particularly within, and I don't want to talk too much about our company per se, but the industry as a whole, where De Beers has been a leader, both in terms of market share and the practices that we implement. It's really been a focus of our #1 champion, which is the CEO. He is a he for she thematic champion under the United Nations, and we continue to look at initiatives within the he for she space, particularly with young entrepreneurs. And just to say where we were, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and where we are today, specifically focusing on women, it's about 850 women micro entrepreneurs in South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. So, the numbers are quite impactful. We are looking at an extension and looking at how we can continue to create a multiple factor in terms of the impact. And to me, that's what sustainability is all about. If you look at the SDGs, a lot of those sustainable development goals focus on women. They focus on children. Where there's children, there's women. And so the SDGs to me are very feminine, very maternal. And as our company, we're starting more and more to realize the power of supporting a woman. You strike a woman, you strike a rock, right? So the whole idea of trying to make sure that we continue to focus on women in terms of sustainability as they look after the community, and how we can support that with the initiatives we have.
Thank you.
There's a lot to be said, but I think that's sufficient.
That's great. That's great.
That's important what you said, because the problem, for instance, in Congo, schools are not free. And it's such a big mining country. We really need to push all these countries where there's mining, that free school, access to very good healthcare and very good infrastructure, because if not, we will always bring the cycle back down.
Yeah, free education is the key, I have to say. I think none of us would be here unless, you know, because, I mean, I had a free education. I'm not sure I could have afforded to pay for it when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It's a massive thing.
And I think drivers like Naseem are doing that even more so within the mining organizations that they're in. So
Naseem, that brings us to you. Hello. So you're at the sharp end of the diamond mining industry, overseeing mines, very productive mines, some of the most important diamonds in recent times, like the Lesedi Lerona and the Sewello, both over 1,000 carats. They've come from some of your mines. Why do you think in mining the future is female?
Thank you for the question, Melanie. So I'm going to take the team through a mining 101 session, a masterclass. It won't be too long, but I just want to bring into context what the mining industry is about for those who don't know. And I do apologize for the ladies that are on the panel that understand, and that's why we are in the mining sector. But just to bring in 3 key notes on what the mining sector is all about, and it's not exhaustive, right? So in mining, it's very, very dynamic. It's a continuously changing environment. On a day-to-day basis, we don't see the same day. Every day, it's a different day. And that's why I love being in mining, because it's so challenging, it's so dynamic, right? And then on the other hand, it needs decisive people, right? So in mining, again, you need to make decisions quickly, obviously informed, but quickly and within time, especially when it comes around for the safety of our people. Stakeholder management, earlier on, Pat was talking about talking to the government and that sort of thing. You talk to an array of people with varying requirements and needs. And, when you look at mining, that's what it's all about. Those are the 3 key things for me that drove me to mining. But let me come back to women now. So women have the most amazing qualities, right? And one of them being adaptable. We love change, right? We're tenacious. Now, tell a woman she can't do something. Oh boy, oh boy. You've opened up a can of worms, and she'll give you what you want and more, right? We multitask. It's inherent in us. We don't even know we're doing it. It's second nature, right? We're passionate, we're empathetic, and we're decisive because we're not afraid of asking questions, right? So when I look at the 2, which is mining and me, a woman, and obviously all the women here, we all share these qualities. It's not unique to me or the panelists, it's absolutely every woman that I'm talking about. So when I look at this and I look at mining itself, I actually think mining was made for women, right? So my direct answer to your question, Melanie, is that we are the future of mining because of the way we've been, it's inherent in us, right? We've got a high level of EQ, we've got a high level of CQ, and it's a match made in heaven, right? I mean, really, for me, mining is the key for women because of the way we're geared, and it's inherent in us. We're born that way. That's just the way we are. It's in our DNA. And then just to substantiate that, or even to augment that, is that, when you have diversity and inclusivity in an organization, and I'm coming back to my roots, which is I'm a CFO by profession. Well, I'm a chartered accountant by profession. So I love numbers, right? Statistically speaking, if a woman is leading an organization, within 2 years, your bottom line has increased, okay? Again, statistically speaking, have women in the C-suite, you get a 34% greater return than you would if you didn't have that diversity. Diversity again, and I'm talking about women again, if you have them at managerial positions, it's proven. There's a high level of creativity and innovation because different perspectives, right? Direct to the bottom line of your organization. So in short, I mean, women in leadership is just good for business. So we are the future of mining.
And you're the first female managing director of Lucara in Botswana. What advice can you give to women watching this who aspire to be in that kind of position?
Well, that's, thank you for the question. It's not a difficult one, but it depends on who you are. But the bottom line is it's generic for everyone, right? And I talk about women and how tenacious we are. all I need to tell the young ladies out there, and even the aspiring ladies that are out there, is you need to work hard. You never give up, right? That's one thing you never do. And you keep your eyes on the prize. So for me, it's my motto is nothing is impossible, and I never believe the sky's the limit. I always go beyond that, right? So that is what got me to where I am 17 years down the line. And, you know, it's always about believing in yourself. I mean, it was mentioned earlier on in the panel. You've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to believe in the fact that you can deliver, and you can. You know, you are the only individual that'll create those obstacles. And I'm just going to bring it a bit closer to home and just share a personal story with you guys. When I got promoted to managing director, it took me 17 years to get to my position. It's a long time, it's hard work, and you know, we work in a man's world, so it's a little bit more difficult than normal. And you know, when I got offered the job, I asked myself if I was capable, but for 17 years, I wanted the job. And on the day that I was offered the job, I questioned my ability. So bottom line is, this is my advice to everybody here, is that don't question yourself. When you get told that you have a ride on a spaceship to go and see the moon, do you question that? No, you don't. All you ask is, do I need a change of clothes? That's all. So when somebody offers you a job like this, you don't question yourself. And for me, I think I was my biggest enemy at that point, because I asked myself that question: will I be good enough? And you know what? I was. It's just that I had this burning thing in my heart. Will I be able to deliver? You know, we as women are perfectionists, so we always want to be good at what we're doing. And that's why we always ask and second guess ourselves. And for me, I think that's very important. Do not second guess yourself. And honestly, don't give up. Focus on the prize and you'll get it.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Naseem. So that brings us to a section where we're going to ask people in the audience to give us some questions on the Q&A section, wherever you're sort of coming in from. And in the meantime, I'm going to throw some general questions open to the panel while we wait for some questions from the audience. So this is to anyone who wants to jump in. Earlier, I was sort of talking about quotas, and they're very controversial, as we know. Some people, many people argue against them. Do you think that we should have them? Are they effective? And what are the downsides to quotas in mining? Anyone? Naseem, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I'm one of those that doesn't believe in a quota. And I think it's coming back to something Pat talked about. And I think, you know what, Botswana is definitely the blueprint of Africa. And that's why for me, a quota is not going to work. And I'll say this specifically because of the fact that I'm sitting in an organization where promotions for women happen organically. It was done on the basis of competencies and the fact that that individual was the right person for the job. And it didn't matter whether you're a woman or a man. You were the right person for the job. And you know, you talk about sustainability. When you do things in that manner, it's in a sustainable manner and it lasts. So you're not forced to meet a number, and you're not forced to put somebody in a box or position. It inherently happens. And when it happens organically, it's more sustainable for your organization. And that's why maybe my response is more in light of what is happening in Botswana, because for those that don't know, Botswana has really good laws for women empowerment, extremely good actually. In fact, the organizations in Botswana should actually use the law because it works so well, right? I mean, in Botswana, we had the first female minister at the time of inception of Botswana in 1966, right? So these things have been happening for a long period of time in Botswana. It's taken us this long to get to a first female Botswana at the helm of a diamond industry. But the law always supported us, right? So that's why I believe if we have quotas, we're forced to put people into positions. If it's done organically, it's sustainable.
Great. Anyone else want to jump in on that?
I think organically, like you say, it's very important. And it has to have the skills too. But I think we need to really have, from the curriculum at schools, from what I see at schools in Africa, to block this stereotype. You know, we teach sometimes at our school in Africa, boys will do that, women will do this. And I think that's the big problem. We need to be more general. Every woman can access any job, technical, engineering, working in office, being a seller, or even going to dig the mines.
And I totally agree, right? It's very important that we don't stereotype. I mean, we can do just about anything a man can, right? In fact, sometimes I feel we do it better, right? So it's about making sure that we don't put people in boxes. And for me, that's always, you know, when we talk quotas, I feel people put people in boxes, that I need to fill this box and it needs to happen in the next year. And that's why it's important, like you're saying, at the grassroots levels or the foundation is schooling. We need to inform our young girls that they can achieve anything. And I think better than anyone is the panel here. I mean, Pat, you know, in Gabs, I grew up with 6 siblings, right? So basically, I grew up with 3 girls, 3 boys, including myself. And I hung out with the boys because I was in an environment where I had no restrictions. And maybe that's why I'm so into the mining industry. I can dig, right? So even though I come from the finance side, I can dig. But bottom line, it's all about making sure that people are not put in boxes and no one stereotyped that, oh, you're perfect for an admin job, but not a mining job because you're female and you're weak. We're not weak. We know how to do these things. In fact, we do them better than many of the men out there. And it's a very important point. It's in the foundation.
I can see Satta needs to say something. Go on, Satta.
I just wanted to say just quickly, I mean, well done, Naseem, I think well said. But I think we just need to look at this chat room now and the panelists. It's very diverse. You're at your top of your game, Pat's at the top of her game, and so is Naseem, and so is Noëlla. And I think this is a great example of what can be done. But Naseem has actually touched on, you know, you only need quotas if a business isn't able to promote and absorb the talent and in women organically. And I think she's hit the nail on the head. Great.
Yeah. Just to say, you know, we're speaking to the converted here, which is it's a really nice girls' room right now. I'm loving it. It's, you know, the thing is, as much as we sit here, we know the stories that we've been through, right? We've been through the man story. And the man story is not because it was deliberate. It was because there was this blind perspective and a total misunderstanding of the multitude attributes and the lateral capability of a woman. And I know we've all sat, you know, in Satta's life, Noëlla, Naseem, we've all sat in that meeting where you are the minority and you're sitting there looking around the room and going, is it me or is it them? And it's just because you think this way, and there's a tendency that it's always been a vertical thought process. So the quota is not, is definitely not something that should happen, but it's about finding the common ground that says, wait a minute, something is missing. Something is missing in terms of our success, whatever that success is. Is it operational? Is it the bottom line? Is it our positioning? There's something missing. And if you look at that gap and say, that actually exists in females, that actually exists in women. This is what women do best. They are agile, as Naseem was saying, and you know, Satta was talking about going to new frontiers. We're challenged. Noëlla was talking about the importance of how do we get our young women to think that way. And it does take, unfortunately, a partnership. It's kind of like the Botswana partnership with De Beers. If you had one without the other, I'm not sure we'd be where we're talking right now from Botswana. You have to have that healthy tension that says, wait a minute, we have to have women. And then you need the other side that says, you know what, you're right. Because we can't fulfill those gaps. And then you start to see the agility. And it's really interesting that in a lot of companies, in my company, we're seeing more women sitting around the table. Different conversations, of course. Women also have their mindset of doing things. And in some instances, the men are the minority going, okay, I'm just going to sit back and see what the women are going to say. And it's really interesting how that's starting to happen more and more. Healthy tension there as well, because, you know, women, we like to, we're maternal, so we're going to say what we think is best for everybody, which is a good thing. But it does mean that we have to continually say, do we have both people in the room? And we need both.
Yes, I think that's true. And we have some questions from the audience. I'm going to start with a question from David, who asks, and this is to anyone, jewellery is bought primarily by and for women around the world, and there seem to be few women at the helm of the jewellery trade organisations. Industry congresses are still very male dominated. Do you think this is, why do you think this is, and what should be done to encourage women to step forward? Anyone want to answer that? I'm going to step in then, if no one wants to jump in there, and say, I would say the networks for the trade are still very male. And I know when I started off going around seeing people, especially in Switzerland and places in Europe, if I went with a male colleague, they would often talk to that man first, you know, like I wasn't kind of there. So I think when you get into the technical aspects of the trade, sometimes there are fewer women. And I wonder if that goes back to what Noëlla was saying about education. We have to get women and girls to consider careers which they probably aren't even aware of. Maybe we have to go into schools and talk to people about what we do from a point of view of what they can do. Pat. Oh,
it's interesting when we talk about women and we talk about skills, but when we talk about men, it's about networks.
Yeah.
A lot of the men who are where they are didn't have the skills. They were mentored. They were in the right place at the right time. They've been in the industry for a long time. They are in the inner circle, you know, and for women, it's like, no, you have to get the skills. So I think what is important, yes, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but it's also really important for the network. There needs to be a network because that's a force, that's a movement of where you don't feel like you're alone. That's one thing. And then also, I think what's important is to feel that you can enter regardless. Naseem said it. You know, she knew she wanted that position forever. And then when she had all the skills, and then she got there and she's going, you know, do I really know how to drive the spaceship? And the answer is if she got into that car, that spaceship, she would have flown anyways, right? So why is it that we do that with women? And we need to stop doing that. We need to, and there's the McKinsey did a study about how, you know, a man doesn't necessarily have to get the skills to be promoted, can learn, you've got the capability, right? You have the capability and then you learn as you develop in that position. But with women, we have to meet the criteria and we need to have a different conversation around that to say, how do we upskill within the potential? Knowing that a woman has the natural attributes of learning, delivery, you know, management skills, organizational skills naturally, and take that as a diamond that is unique in itself and develop that and mentor that. So I think we need to move from a basis of you have to have, you know, the whole 9 yards to you have the potential to be.
I think you're talking about perfection, Pat. We have to get rid of the perfection and just basically. Satta has been, we'll go for Satta and then Naseem. Satta, you were going to say.
To jump in there and to the question that was asked, I think we also need to look at the origins and the history, particularly so, and I'm speaking from a jewelry trade or the jewelry space, where it's always been patriarchal, right? So it's always been men designing, making and marketing a beautiful object for a woman, right? But increasingly now, what I'm seeing, and I firmly believe that there is now space for women designing jewelry for women. And we're seeing lots of examples of this. So there are actually women sitting down on the benches, making the jewelry. There are women who are leading sort of massive design teams, you know, for the big jewelry houses. I think Louis Vuitton has a female leading its team. Yeah. There are women who, you know, have access or making decisions with huge marketing budgets. And also we're seeing brands, you know, successful brands and businesses being run by women. So I think there's quite a lot that's happening there in that space.
Great, thanks, Satta. And Naseem.
Hi, and I think I'll echo what Satta is saying, in the sense that, you know, we're seeing a lot more happening in all the spheres. You know, I mean, 3 years ago, I was the only female in the boardroom. Now, 75% of us are female, right? So I think what's happening is it's an evolution. It doesn't happen overnight, it's an evolution. And we have seen issues in the past, but I think we're moving away from that. And we are becoming more inclusive and gender diverse. It's there, you can see it. I mean, the panel alone, you can see it, right? But I think also, and you know, I like bringing my personal life into this here. I see my daughter, right? And I see it, I can see it at home, where she can do just about anything that a brother can. And she has no limitation, you know? And I think it's about that generation that we inform them. And it comes back to Noëlla's point again, to inform the young girls that there is no limitation. You can do whatever it is you want to do. You can become an engineer. You can go and dig in the mine. You can actually go into your garden and dig if you want to. There's nothing wrong with physical work. You can do it. It's not only for males. So bottom line is, we have come out of that, I don't know what it is, sphere where, you know, there were certain jobs for women, admin jobs for women, and the technical jobs for men. Yes, we've seen it, it's in the past. What I'm seeing right now is so refreshing, where I talk to the young kids in career roundtables, and you can see the women are overtaking the men, and there's nothing wrong with that, because they are the go-getters. They get what they want, and you can see it, and I think it's a natural evolution, and we're getting there. And it's going to be organic. You will see more women in the forefront, and I'll come back to the quota system, and it's not about the quotas. It's about knowing that I can do anything as a female. And I have no restrictions.
Thank you, Naseem. That brings us to our last question, because we're running out of time. This is from Facebook. And the question is, what do you see as the next frontier for women in diamond mining? Who wants to go for that one?
Well, I think I should, right? I don't know, Pat, do you want to go first and then I'll go? I don't know.
Go ahead.
My mom will be always the best friend of women.
We're already there, right? I mean, I'm not going to talk to where Pat works, because she knows the numbers better than I do. But I mean, we're 75% female in our board, okay? That's not, it's unheard of, right? And 3 years ago, I was the only female in the board, right? At our corporate level, 75% female. At our local level exco team, 67% female, and it's happening. Mm-hmm. So we're already there, and it's evolving very, very quickly. You know, that's why I talked about organic, because the more we interview people, and the more they can see that we're gender diverse and inclusive in our organization, the more the women come to the forefront. And it's happening. You can see it happening. It's taken a long period of time, but it's now happening. And you know what? It's refreshing, as I say. It's happening, and you can see women coming in the forefront. You know, you talk about, I mean, there's a question coming from Dave where he said there's a lot of men in the sort of trading rooms and that sort of thing. We sell diamonds here at the Diamond Park here, and we see a lot of men coming through. This was about over 3 years ago. And now there are women in the forefront that are actually valuing the diamonds for people, which was unheard of before. But you can see it's evolving in the industry, and it's not just diamonds. I think it's mining right across, right? But this is the frontier, right? We are in the forefront already, and I'm sure Pat is catching up, right? So we can see it. The only problem that I had initially with mining was that you wouldn't see women in the technical front coming through. You'd see a lot of women in the forefront on the admin side of things, but you're now seeing more of that happening, which is really great for women.
Yeah.
And again, for the bottom line of your organization, as I've said. So
And I think what is the future too for Africa, it's a lot of technical schools. We need to have more technical schools. Before, you needed to be a doctor, all these big jobs. Our parents were pushing to do that. But we need to understand that you can have technical schools. And it comes back to the curriculum. If you ask a child in Africa, what's your country? Do you know what mines there is in your country? Most of the children, they don't know. They don't know. It is so important to give them the values of their country where they're from and what they're sitting on. If they know they have diamond, they have the gold, they have the uranium, they have the lithium and all of that, they will understand, we have so much in our country in terms of minerals. I need to work in this industry to be part of the change I want to see in my country, and this to be the solution where we will be investing in all the pillars to make grow the country. And that's one thing again that is missing in our culture and in the ways that our governments and our schools are functioning, and not having enough technical school for the population to go into these kind of jobs.
And just to add to what's been said, I think the most incredible thing that has worked for the future for women is that sustainability has become the spinal cord of businesses, and particularly in our industry. And if you look at the sustainable goals, most of them impact women. So it means that if a company is forward thinking, we're very focused on the sustainable goals. We have a whole business strategy that focuses on building forever. And this is about looking at those sustainable goals and say, where are we in them? And I think everybody's doing that. And if you do that, whether it's gender, poverty, community, eradication of dealing with health, it's all women. A lot of it is women focused. So it's about changing that and focusing on sustainability as a business strategy, as a fundamental for the change for women.
I've got one more question by popular demand. We're slightly going to run over, but no one cares because we're on fire. So the question is, as you have experienced firsthand the impact of diamond mining, what do you say to consumers that wonder about the ethics of diamonds and are doubtful when they see a picture of a diamond mine? So I take by that question the impact environmentally. So we're talking about sustainability. It's a question which has many parts. Does anyone want to answer one of those elements? Do we get that question? Go for it, Pat. Oh, Pat's still on mute. Can someone unmute Pat?
There we go.
Yes.
Am I okay? So just it's a question that comes up whenever we take people to the mine. Look at this big hole. My goodness, what is it doing to the environment? And yet, I always ask, what do you see when you see that hole, the hole? And they're thinking, oh, environment, it's affecting this, affecting that. And I said, look a little closer. Do you see who's driving those trucks? If you look very closely, you'll see that it's all women. The women driving those massive trucks on the mine are women. That woman supports not only herself and her family, but probably supports 10 people in her community. Now, you just went to see a school and you saw that this education is free. That's a result of that. You just went to see some wildlife on the mine because we have over 80,000 hectares of land to protect endangered species like rhinos on the mines, right? Which tells you that it's a healthy environment because, rhinos are very sensitive to their environment and we protect them. You couldn't be more protected than on a mine. So from a conservation, health, anybody from the village surrounding the mine can go into a first-class hospital. And we are, a medium-sized high economy as a result of that hole that you see right there. So Now, that's not to say that that's an all answering question as response, but if you look at the social impact of what you see as a whole and look at the social impact that it has had on millions of people, then you have to really think about what you're seeing as an issue. So for me, it's all about what does that whole stand for and who does it impact and what does it mean for the future as well.
Oh, Satta.
Back Pat up on this to what she just said, because I think it's really important. And I like the fact that she's actually used Botswana as a case study. And there's many people out there, you know, there's this school of thought whereby they say, well, you know, the diamond or the mining industry actually uses Botswana as a case study all the time. And I'm sure, Pat, you get that, you know. Well, the reality is, when mining is done correctly and when it's done sustainably, it can uplift a country, its people, its communities, leaps and bounds, you know, and when done, you know, with intentional good. So I'd just like to share my story. So originally I'm from West Africa, and I am lucky to have been able to be part of a generation that actually saw a country that was heavily dependent on mining wealth. And we actually saw it going through the cusps of degeneration, right? From having clean water to electricity, to accessible healthcare and school, traffic lights, to a country where today there's nothing. So therefore, I also strongly feel that governments and producer governments themselves have a part to play. And, you know, they should probably come and take a leaf off the Botswana book, give Pat a call. But it's a great case study.
And I think as well, the alternative is illegal mining, which is a definitely, we don't want that. And I think often when people question, obviously there are issues in every area of business, but often when people question these things, they're doing it from quite a privileged Western perspective of having lots of other alternative options. You know, you can't just take away an entire industry. You have to then replace it with something else. And at some point, you know, the mines don't have a life which extends indefinitely. There has to be other plans, and those plans, it sounds like, are kind of in practice. So we have, I think Naseem wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you. Just back to your comment as well as Pat's and Satta. I mean, everybody has mentioned the right things in terms of mining, and it's an important to understand that from our perspective. I mean, we're talking about a Botswana blueprint here. You know, we've got good governance around the way we mine and just the legislation around it, how the funds are used, brought back to the country, brought back to the community. And it's about empowering the community, the people within the communities here and Botswana in general, right? But it's also about, aside from the legislation, it's about the actual operators of those mines. It's about mining responsibly, whether you're looking at the environment, whether you're looking at the communities and the employees of the organization. I mean, for a mine to be responsible, you have to have a safe operation for the community and for the people that are actually working in that operation. So bottom line is, you know, Pat says everybody has that question when they come to the mine. I think it's important for people to actually come and have a look at the operations that we're running. Because from an environmental perspective, if you come to our operation, we're continuously rehabilitating the land. We're continuously ensuring that the water quality at our operation does not impact on the communities, and the water is clean for the communities to use. We're continuously looking at greenhouse emissions. I can talk about greenhouse emissions and lab-grown diamonds and so on and so forth. We're continuously looking at that. And for as long as we're responsible miners, the environment will always be key. The people we work with will always be key. The community, the country, priority number one. So that for me is the takeaway for what you call privileged people, to understand that where we come from, we are responsible miners. And we mine responsibly to ensure that we don't just tackle people only, we tackle the entire 360-degree aspect of mining. And it's about the whole, it's about the pollution, it's about everything in relation to responsible mining. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any more points to make on that, or anything else, or I think we might wrap up because we're kind of through most of the questions. I was just going to say then that the things we've touched on today, we're saying that mentoring and role models is quite a key element for women and girls to consider in this industry. Free education and technical schools, very important, and we should think about how to, you know, lobby for those things. And also, we just need a diversity in the boardroom, but also across businesses, to have a voice for everyone so that we can have the best business possible. Does anyone have anything to add to that before I sort of wrap up? No, I think that's great. Okay, Satta, you're looking like...
No, well, no, I just wanted to say it'd be interesting if we as a panel make a pact and say, right, in my vision, in the next, you know, 5-10 years, if we were to have this same conversation again, I think it would be very different. I think mining would look very different. I feel the boards of mining companies will have a lot more women that would shape and direct those synergies to promote continuity and wealth. And also, I think this is a point that I really wanted to make earlier on. I think what's needed in today's world is something called emotional intelligence. And I think it's an attribute that's intrinsically linked to women, to all of us. I'm not saying that men haven't got emotions, but it's something that, you know, we've got the blueprint. And I just feel, you know, they're great things to come.
Wonderful.
And I do think we need absolutely to push our government to be accountable and to have a big role to play, because the big problem, if the government doesn't follow the vision, the mission of all of that, nothing will follow.
And maybe we need more women in government as well.
That's
yes, I think so.
Africa is so far behind having women at key roles in government.
Cannot agree more, Noëlla.
Political life is so harsh for women. And, you know, women find it hard to survive in politics because they are so targeted. So that there are bigger questions, you know, out there as well for women, I think. Just to get to this point of mining, we have to look at all the power structures, really. And so I think that brings us to the end. I want to thank the panel, who were spectacular. I could go on for hours, for days, but we won't because we've got things to do. So thank you to everyone who joined me on the panel. Thanks to the Natural Diamond Council for hosting us today. I think it's clear from everything that's been said that women play a huge part in the potential for Africa to realise its potential economically, and that local communities have to be key alongside governments, foreign investors. Everyone has to play a part and do something. We need to see changes as well, as we said, basically, for women to actually have the power to push things through. And natural diamonds are a finite resource. But while we have them, we have to share the wealth and opportunity with everyone. So I think that brings us to the end. Thank you to everyone, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon for another webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Enjoy.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.